Let's go to business now with Nona Pelsier. Nona, economic worm is starting to turn, you say, with the gap between the north and south of New Zealand expected to close. What's happening?
Well, I can say, first of all, it's not me who's saying it. No, it's the chief economist at Westpac, Dominic Stevens. He says that the worm is turning. And the reason he says that is that the economic data that they collect for the country is actually, when you start looking down into it, it's different from one region to another. And so they publish a survey every quarter. No, sorry, not a survey. They publish a report every quarter where they look at the differences in the various regions. And they've come up with an interesting finding. So for a long time, probably since 2017, 2018, we've seen, export-led regions doing very well versus, say, Auckland, where housing prices have made it less affordable. Also, in Waikato, there's been some issues there too, and northern regions. And they've not done as well as the southern parts of the islands, both Wellington and then further south where dairy prices had rebounded. So it's changing now. We've gone back to, we saw recently a consumer survey where sentiment was improving. Consumer sentiment, distribution of goods and services are really centered in Auckland. So Auckland is coming back, and the other regions are likely to stay about the same, but that gap is going to close. So we're going to see more growth in the regions that have been kind of sluggish over the last little while. And I spoke with Dominic Stevens, and so he had this to say.
Recently, the New Zealand economy slowed hard during 2017 and into early 18, but if you went to the likes of Otago or Hawke's Bay and talked about a slowdown, they didn't know what you're talking about. And in fact, if you get down into the regional detail of the New Zealand economy, you find that the slowdown was pretty much entirely a Canterbury and Auckland phenomenon, and perhaps some regions near Auckland. Other parts of the country were actually accelerating during that period. The southern part of each island was really bounding ahead. Now, I think that's still the case now, but the worm is starting to turn. I think Auckland and nearby regions in particular are starting to catch up with some of the dynamism that has already been evident in the southern part of each island.
There you go. And of course, he talked a little bit about more rural regions and what's going to happen there. So we know that dairy prices have come off, and the Farmgate milk price that Fonterra pays has just been revised down. And so that these kinds of things are going to put a bit of a damp down some of the enthusiasm in those particular regions. But that will be offset by increased government spending and, of course, the Provincial Growth Fund.
Yep.
So overall, we're still going to have a pretty good economy. Looking ahead, though, beyond the next 12 months, things will definitely turn for the whole of the New Zealand economy, and that's because of a downturn in population growth. And really what that is New Zealanders leaving New Zealand. More of them are leaving, and that is going to have some impact, for example, in areas where they've had a lot of construction, and now they're not going to have as much, say Wellington, for example, whereas in Auckland, we still have critical shortage of houses for the existing population, and that's going to carry on for some time.
And what else has been going on in the markets today, Nona?
Well, I guess the situation with Huawei has definitely had an impact.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. And certainly it's coming through in Asia. And, of course, the U.S. market was closed overnight because of
George Bush's funeral?
That's right.
Yep.
And so we don't know exactly how that's going to play out in the United States, but you can bet it's not going to be good. I'm betting. I don't know for certain. Anything can happen overnight, as you know. These markets are volatile, and that uncertainty is really unsettling investors, certainly in Asia. We haven't seen Europe open yet, but you can expect that to carry on. A lot of red everywhere. New Zealand's not doing too badly. We fell more than 0.25% today, which isn't really too bad considering in Australia they were down about 0.5% at the same time. So we fell 23 points to 8,758. Now, you mentioned earlier Fonterra. They've announced some changes.
Yeah.
Their share price ended down at 1 cent to $4.70. So the market was kind of, I guess, already pricing in whatever they heard from Fonterra today. The New Zealand dollar is mixed, and that's interesting. We're up against the Australian currency because the Australian currency is more exposed to the trade worries that are going on right now. But we were down a bit, so that's 95 cents Australian we're trading at, which is, you know, quite a rise, and been hanging on to that, yes. And 68.6 US cents, so we're down slightly there, and 53.1 British pence, and that's also because of what's been going on with Brexit. So much uncertainty everywhere, no matter what part of the world you're looking at. So
Keeps you gainfully employed, Nona.
It certainly does.
That is Nona Pelletier with Business.